welcome to the Rethink Leadership Podcast, available on all platforms including YouTube if you prefer to watch. My name is Jeremy Blain, CEO of Performance Works International, Executive Director of the Transformational Leadership Acceleration Institute, and Managing Partner of Diversity Talent. My aim is to bring insights from leaders, experts, and highly talented professionals from around the world. Insights, stories, and advice from the front lines of modern leadership to engage, inspire, and mobilize progress back in the workplace. Every episode is a learning opportunity for us all. The Rethink Leadership Podcast also supports charities around the world. Each episode is in aid of a cause chosen by my guests, and to date I'm proud to say we've supported over 60 global and local great causes. Welcome to Danny Dixon, my guest for today's Rethink Leadership Podcast, founder and CEO of the startup business Portivo, a new type of disruptive marketplace for consulting expertise that connects clients and consultants using an innovative modular statement of work approach, combining best practice thinking with practical implementation. Prior to this, Danny was a senior executive and leader in the mobile telecoms industry, working in transformation, products, and customer experience. This episode is in aid of Mind, Danny's chosen charity, because people, especially men, need to talk more about mental health. During our discussion, Danny tells me how consulting marketplaces are disrupting every sector, what it means for professional services as a whole, the benefits it can derive versus traditional consulting, and where we are in terms of uptake. Let's hear more. Hello and welcome, Danny. Please introduce yourself, potted history of your really impressive career, and tell us about why you set up Portivo.
Yeah, hello. I'm really pleased to be doing this. Actually, it's a great opportunity, and so I guess if we take a step back, my career spanning over 25 years now, I started off in technology, actually in IT, then moved more into commercial when I worked for a large mobile company in the UK for a number of years, and across that covered finance operations, customer experience, digital, and transformation activity. And when I left there in 2019, I decided that I was going to embark on my own consulting career, and wondered actually if there was just a better way to do consulting. So to provide greater definition, if you like, around the types of engagement. So a typical statement of work, that's not rocket science on its own. But ultimately, was there a way to better connect the client and the consultant community, potentially in a scaled up model via a marketplace that could create a totally new way for clients to be able to buy consultant services from the independent consultant market, that gave them access to a much broader portfolio of services, and that's the idea for Portivo was born, really. So it was a desire to try and improve, and ultimately, but also recognize there was an opportunity to scale this particular model, and that's what we've done.
It's kind of like the gig economy for consulting. Is that something around that? Is it?
That's right. Yeah, and actually, if you think about it, there's existing marketplaces within consulting as well, but not necessarily at the high end. So that's effectively what I was aiming to do, because there's a huge amount of potential in the UK in terms of capability, and actually if we can unlock that potential across the whole of the UK, with a marketplace type concept, then yes, you can have like people who only want to work at particular times, enabling it to fit around their particular lifestyles, and also then delivering value for clients as well. So it can be a win-win, if you like, for driving innovation within the great land that we call our UK.
Yeah, and now my ears are pricked up. Obviously, being a consultant or an operational consultant myself. So tell me how then marketplaces are disrupting every sector out there, and was there a pandemic effect as an accelerator to this?
Yeah, I think the pandemic sort of had both positive and slightly more negative effects. We were a new business at the time of the pandemic, so it dried up the demand a little bit. However, what we did find through that time is we were able to build out the proposition and the product in a way that then when the effects of the pandemic started to recede a little bit, we were then able to execute a more stronger sort of go-to-market launch. But we're taking a step back from that, and we look at how marketplaces are transforming, if you like. We think the consulting proposition and industry. There's the sort of zeitgeist, if you like, of what happened with B2C consumer marketplaces, and we've seen the ones that everybody knows and loves, the Amazons, the B&B, those types of marketplaces that have totally transformed the way we either buy product or indeed go on holidays. And of course, there's a plethora of other ones. What we're also seeing, though, is a bigger shift into B2B marketplaces where the traditional purchase models, and actually that, a lot of the time you would see that procurement process going straight into the bigger players, the models that have been around for decades but haven't really changed. But we're seeing a bit of a shift now towards those businesses moving into a space where they want to look at a broader marketplace, look at different offerings. They want to be able to look at different price competition and things like that. And of course, a marketplace does that for you. It gives you access actually to a much greater pool of talent. Tiny percentage of firms dominate the consulting industry, but it's only a very, very small amount of the capability that's out there. And what we believe that the Portivo marketplace can do, indeed other marketplaces like us, is democratize, if you like, the access to independent consultant expertise, which can only be a good thing for industry in terms of access to talent and overall economy in terms of getting more people into work and getting clients the services that they need.
Well, you're preaching to the choir on this one. I have to say that's, and I love the terminology, the democratizing of independent consultancies, and it's driving, I would imagine, a shake-up of what is a very traditional sector, professional services, consultancy, whatever you call it. So I'd love to kind of pull out, Danny, what the benefits are of marketplaces. And I think there's some common sense here, but I think getting under the skin of it a bit more will really help those listeners who are interested. The benefits of marketplaces when you do compare it to traditional consulting, or the top five, let's say, and where are we in terms of that uptake? Because it's a new model out there, and some may see it as a higher risk. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. So I mean, in terms of the benefits, we work off a number of what we would call proposition pillars. The fundamentals of why is it different, and ultimately why is it better. And a number of those are, we've created pre-configured statements of work that have effectively codified what is consulting practice, all the way through from discovery and market assessment, strategy, design, even including things like business processes, delivery. So effectively, you can break down into bite-sized chunks the engagement. So that can take the pain away of needing to develop a write statement of work. So sometimes this takes weeks. You can do it on minutes, hours on our platform. Then we've got the opportunity to search a wide range of verified experts who are algorithmically matched based on the platform, based on the way that the client can create the brief. So the client then sees the ones that are closest match, and the client can then really pick the consultants that they want to then have a look at and have more dialogue with, and invite them to bid on their project against a common baseline. So all of these different things then start to say, well, the given the client a greater market access, and also optimized processes that save them time and money. Because the thing I didn't say actually is that the way that we provide services is typically between 30 and 50% lower cost than it is to some of the bigger alternatives. So are there additional risks? Well, maybe. We are the commercially accountable counterparty for the client. So the client can really just hold us to account to deliver those services with those consultants. So as we grow and get bigger, we feel that risk for the client is mitigated, whilst giving them much greater market access.
Well, that's fascinating, Danny. And working as a consultant as well in this field, I understand exactly the point, or the massive benefit of codifying the end-to-end consulting practices, so that you're able to come out with those SOWs and help actually get that client engagement and the connection, the human connection started quicker
Yeah.
in that respect by automating the platform. I love the way that mixes the digital with that human and the consultant matching. What are you, the Tinder for consulting now, is it?
Well, it's funny you say that because when I wrote the strategy for it back in 2020, I didn't use Tinder, but I used Match.com. So I think very much in a similar vein. And you know, you raise a good point there, Jeremy, on the it's not just about a digital platform. You know, I often called it the sort of symbiosis, if you like, of human and digital. You know, we recognize that, you know, the nature of these services are much more high value. And the last thing a client wants is just to be dispatched into a digital Wild West, if you like, where they can, you know, they're not necessarily guaranteed to get the services they want. We will absolutely every time be involved in that process and can help the client as much or as little as they'd like us to, certainly at the outset.
Right. Well, yeah, and I suppose so. Match.com, not Tinder. Okay, fine. Got that one. That's good. That's great. I love it. But it makes so much sense, doesn't it? And particularly as you grow and as you get more projects under the algorithm, presumably will allow that for greater matching. So maybe this is a little bit unfair, but I'd like to put you on the spot here because
Yeah.
the real beauty of this is when you implement, when you put these services in place, when clients specifically realize the benefits of this. So do you have an example of an existing client? You don't have to name names where they're using services on your platform.
Yes, yeah, we've actually got a number of strong testimonials actually, and where we've supplied multiple consultants for either, you know, the same project on multiple phases or indeed different projects, and within a large client that has multiple companies within its group, and you know, they really like a number of things actually, that they can access, you know, the consultant expertise they need, the fact that it's taken that sort of pain away of having to define a statement of work. And it's not a criticism of anybody. Sometimes these things are quite difficult to write. So doing that job for them, and they really like that structure because it provides this, you know, almost a methodology, if you like, for how the project is to be executed, and then gives them a real benchmark for what they're expecting to see in terms of the quality of the outcome. So absolutely, a number of clients absolutely love that definition, takes that pain away, and ultimately then the matching, if you like, of the consultants to that brief, plus the other criteria they use around industry skills, you know, disciplines, you know, gives them a really good choice to work with as well. So yeah.
So you mentioned pricing before as something that's lower than, let's compare it with the strategic consultancies. Is there a kicker around speed here as well? Speed to execution.
Definitely. I mean, when you look at, you know, depending on which insight you use, but if you look at the average procurement timelines, is anywhere between sort of 5 and 6 weeks, you know, and that's an average. So obviously you've got, you know, opposite ends of that. But typically speaking, we will get competitive bids back for a client within 72 hours. Sometimes it's quicker than that. And then at that point, they've got a common baseline for the what effectively is an RFP, and then they've got competitive bids back against that common baseline. So, you know, I guess if you do the simple maths on it, you know, we're doing it at least 10 times, you know, quicker than what would be the case if it was over, you know, the normal period of time.
On it, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm now going to make this about me,
Yeah.
and Danny. So I'm an independent consultant. I've been a leader. I'm strategic and operation. It sounds like I'm selling now.
You
Must
are.
dial that down. Dial
I've,
that down.
I've got a
So
good
let me.
platform you can
Okay,
come
wait a
onto if
minute.
you want
Come on,
to.
across. So tell me about these consulting marketplaces, about how they benefit people like me, independent consultants, freelancers who are bought into the Portivo platform.
Yeah, so what you can, you know, if you think about those productized statements of work, you know, often, you know, the job of an independent consultant can be quite lonely at times, because you're the person doing the work, you're the person doing the marketing, you're the person doing the selling, you're probably even the person doing the accounting, and often, you know, it's difficult to access some of those bigger tier clients because they will typically want to go through a single entity or a bigger entity. So people find themselves having to associate themselves with bigger groups to get access to that. So of course, with the Portivo marketplace, that's given them an extra channel. So we've got some sort of pretty big marketing guns behind the channel itself, and then driving demand at them, the consultants. And then what we're able to do, obviously, with those productized statements of work, is they can really sharpen their offering and understand the different types of things that they could do, and just use that, intellectual property, whatever you want to call it, that we've created for them, to then get verifications against and other parts of their profile, which then builds their profile up, and which will drive ultimately how they get positioned on the marketplace. So yeah, I think in summary, we're acting as a channel. We're giving them real useful content to be able to sell their services, and then giving them an opportunity to surface themselves at a much higher level, assuming they invest in their profile and get that independently verified.
That's a really good point, getting that verification or accreditation, whatever it is, in there, and build that with you as a true partnership, it sounds like, as well, over the time of the projects.
Yeah.
Quick question, because you mentioned, and of course you live in the UK. Is this just for UK only at the moment, or is this an international platform?
We've had a couple of international clients. There are no boundaries, obviously, regulation and law dependent. We typically operate, on terms and conditions that are valid in the UK. Although if you then we were operating in Canada, and you find that the law construct is very similar. So I think in summary, we are open to operating, across different territories. As the platform grows, we'll introduce things like multiple currencies, so we can sort of bill in different rates and things like that. So right now we're predominantly UK. As I say, we've had a couple of international clients, but there's the beauty, I guess, of a digital platform like this is that it's limitless in terms of where it can reach.
Oh, absolutely. And for seasoned independents, whether consultants or freelancers, they buy into that. I do that myself, and I understand that wherever the entity is, that then the contract will be behind the laws of that country, and I'm pretty okay with that on an international level. And I do have this quite a large international listenership to this podcast. So and I know that this will be a topic that many will be interested in. So how do they get in touch with you, Danny, and maybe find out a bit more, if there's a demo or things that you can show them?
Yeah, I think that, they can either connect with me on LinkedIn. So just search for my name, Danny Dixon and Portivo. My email address is danny.dixon@portivo.co, or come via the website as well, which is portivo.co. So I think there's a range of different ways for people to get in touch with us, and we would, the first step, if you like, if people are interested and want to know more, is reach out, get in touch. We'll tee up a call with them and show them what the platform and the proposition is capable of.
Fantastic. Well, that's really explained it extremely clearly, and those in this field of consulting, whether operational or whether more strategic, who are independents, will get this. And of course, it's one of those brilliant ideas which seems so logical, and yet nobody's grabbed hold of yet. So that's been a great listen. Thank you very much, Danny, and thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. I much appreciate it, and hopefully your listeners have enjoyed this one.
I'm sure they have. Goodbye. Thanks for tuning in to the Rethink Leadership podcast with me, Jeremy Blain. Please like, comment, and support us on your favourite platform, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can watch as well as listen to each episode.